Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Monday with man, what if I don't know what your brackets look like, but I've got one team left in the Final Four. I had in one bracket that I've got here. I had Alabama, Kansas State, Kansas, and Miami in my Final Four. Miami has made it, along with Florida Atlantic, UConn, and Creighton. And I like what Jim Nantz said yesterday. People saying, where are the heavyweights? Well, we've got UConn. Hell yeah, they're a heavyweight. They've won 4 national championships, tied for 6th most ever, along with the mighty Kansas Jayhawks, who are strictly observers on this Final Four. Matt Dean checks in with us from over in Memphis at Rhodes College. We will be talking a lot of basketball today, 6 days a week. Second segment, Doug Dean checks in from Birmingham. Hour number 2, Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com, with his interesting take on a lot of things. And Wess Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock in the final segment. Things to keep in mind. Follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. Appreciate that. Appreciate all of our listeners. And let me say something about a couple of our sponsors. One of them, Ann Camp Lee, rumbleboxinggym.com/Midtown Memphis. They're opening 3 weeks from today. She just texted me, April 17th. So you need to join now, because if you wait, you're going to miss out on the special membership sign-up rates that are available now. So you have to do it before April 17th. Go to the website. I drove by there a couple of times over the weekend. Beautiful location right there at Union and McLean in Midtown. 24 weight benches and 24 punching bags in the middle. Group workouts, 45-minute intense training sessions. You need to join now. Great workout. Also, Eleanor Maynard, Hobson Realty. Check them out on our website, Hobson Realty, the hyperlink. Top 5% out of 4,600 realtors in Memphis in 2022. Buying a home, selling a home, it's a lot of work. Hire Eleanor Maynard and her team. If you're moving to Memphis, just go there and hire Eleanor Maynard at Hobson Realty, one of the top realtors in Memphis, 3rd generation Hobson realtor. She's going to be making some comments about the current market and opportunities that are out there. Matt Dean, no erasers, please. Can you imagine what's going on behind the scenes with people trying to make their brackets look somewhat presentable? But the carnage that was, yesterday, Texas is up by 11 points late in the game, and they can't close the deal. Jim Larinaga, 17 years ago on this exact date, 2006, he got his George Mason team into the Final Four. I think it's been one of the best March Madness tournaments I can ever remember. You're not a heavyweight. You're not a blue blood. If you look at it that way, like Jim Nantz was saying, if you didn't qualify for the Final Four, I don't care who you are, what your pedigree is. I don't care if you were born on third base and thought you hit a triple. I don't care if, you've got people like Seth Greenberg on TV whining about the officials robbed you. No, I'm not going to listen to that. These are the best 4 teams in college basketball. It's a celebration of teams, of guys that have stuck it out, that didn't quit. Now, no, some guys have transferred. I get that. But a lot of these guys have been there in relative anonymity in the witness protection program, seemingly, for 3 or 4 or 5 years. And their teams. I love this. And the Rena students, the one and dones. And it's great when you get one of these guys, but it's hard to win a national championship without a commitment. So, Coach, with that being said, let's go.
Well, Rob, it's good to be here. And one of the things I wanted to correct you on, it was actually San Diego State that beat Creighton. So They are in our final.
San Diego State. I'm sorry. I knew that was. I knew it was San Diego State. What am I? I'm losing my mind.
And that was an incredible ending because San Diego State's up too late. Literally, Creighton's going to have to foul. Horrible turnover, bad pass. Creighton ties the game, and then you had that foul call late, and then you had a long pass that was actually reviewed for about, seemed like 5 minutes, and the game was just ended. But all props to San Diego State. You know, a few years ago when COVID hit and they canceled March Madness, I don't know if people remember this, but I think San Diego State was like 31-2. And there's actually a few guys left that probably didn't play much in that first year when they were there with them. But to me, the story yesterday was Miami. I mean, they were down big. They did the same thing in their first game. They trailed Drake, my alma mater, by 8 points with 5 minutes to play. They looked terrible, dead in the water. They end the game on a 16-1 run. Then they absolutely take out Indiana. They absolutely take out Houston. And yesterday, Texas, for the first 30 minutes, you could honestly say it was a blowout almost. I mean, they were just, I think it was 12, 13-point game, and then something switched. And another thing they do very well, Rob, they make their free throws. They don't miss free throws. So when they get to the foul line, they capitalize. So to me, Florida Atlantic is a huge story. San Diego State's a huge story. I think even though you had them in your Final Four, Rob, people would probably say, Miami is a huge story too with Larinaga taking the second team to the Final Four at the age of 73.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, UConn is just tearing up everybody. UConn, as you mentioned, Rob, 4 national championships. Jim Calhoun, Coach Ollie, his former player, and now Danny Hurley. They look like a team of destiny to me. They have all the weapons. They can shoot the three. They can go inside. And quite frankly, they defended a pretty good clip. I mean, to beat Gonzaga by 28 points. Yeah. And Gonzaga came back from a 13-point deficit to beat UCLA. So what a tournament. You're right, one of the best tournaments I remember because, honestly, it was really hard to predict games. We said it there. We thought there was no dominant team, Rob, and maybe the only thing we may have had wrong is UConn is playing like a dominant team. They are playing like a 1 seed. But, there was a stretch in the year, and I don't know what happened because I didn't study UConn this year that much. They lost 5 or 6 games in a row, I believe, in their conference. And everyone kind of fell off their wagon. And, boy, I tell you what, right now, they have all the momentum.
Well, Matt, UConn did not lose a single game outside of their league this year.
Right.
And people dropped the ball when they lost those 5 conference games in a row. They ignored them. But there's and it's really annoying narrative by the minders on TV. They want certain teams there, and if they're not there, it's an upset. Quit using the term upset.
Correct.
Is it an upset when a smaller guy whips a bigger guy's tail in a fight? No. It's the one who wanted it the most. And I think a lot of the so-called blue bloods or heavyweights are just a bunch of made up storylines. That's just what it is. This has been the year, and I love it. We kept talking about San Diego State, John Hartwell, and you both did.
We did.
About how physical that team was. They looked like a football team. And then when you listen to their coach in post-game interviews, he has supreme confidence. There's no doubting San Diego State. I love the Aztecs. Man, they have really proved they're just a really good team. We were watching that Alabama game Friday night, and Alabama and the SEC just died in the Sweet 16. Best team, best basketball league in America. Hell, okay, look at the Final Four. Mountain West has 1. ACC champion Miami's another. UConn from the Big East. Did they even win their conference? No, they didn't. And so Florida Atlantic, yeah, they won Conference USA. But like Kevin Skarbinski and you have said, UAB beat Florida Atlantic one time, lost the other two times, but there's 363 teams that can get in the tournament. I just think people, let's call it what it is, Matt. Most people are lazy. They are. They're not going to do the research like what you're doing, what John Hartwell's doing, and what our other guests do to go find these teams. Creighton's there every year, not in the Final Four or the Elite Eight, but they're always a presence. I think it's great. There's good basketball played all over the country.
There really is. In basketball, we know this. Basketball is the one sport where this can happen. You're not going to have, let's face it, you're probably not going to see San Diego State's football program in the college football playoff. But basketball is the one sport where you can put together a couple recruiting classes. If you can maintain continuity and you have some leadership in your senior class, you have a chance to make a run. And that Alabama game on Friday night, San Diego State, they just, they're a tough-minded team. And when they interview those guys post-game, Rob, they're not shocked at the outcome at all. They're like, this is what we thought this was going to happen. And especially from their message from their head coach. Incredible story at Florida Atlantic, Dustin May, just a tremendous job. That Kansas State game was another really good game. 79-76. There were opportunities late for Kansas State to potentially take that game into overtime. But once again, Florida Atlantic down the stretch, they made their free throws. I mean, right now, anything's possible. What if we see a Miami Florida Atlantic final? How crazy that would be. We could still have two teams that are still left from the state of Florida. They're not that far apart. You got Coral Gables and Boca Raton, Florida. Due to Google Maps, it's not that far apart. Right now, though, I mean, the way UConn was playing, the way the Big East was perceived all year, they are legit. They are legit, and I'm not going to rule off Miami, though. I mean, every time I think Miami's done, with 10 minutes to go, I was at a restaurant last night. Son's in town with his girlfriend, my family, and another family. And we're watching that game. We're watching the comeback. And every possession, Miami gained confidence. And quite frankly, Miami, they have some NBA guards on that roster too. They're not going to be fazed by UConn. Larinaga not going to be fazed by coaching against anyone. I thought the last 10 minutes, that was the one big advantage Miami had against Texas was Jimmy Larinaga over that sidelines that's taken George Mason to the Final Four. Miami was back-to-back Elite Eights, and now Miami is Final Four. And outside the box, let me say another one, Rob. I'm really proud of my Lady Hawkeyes, University of Iowa women. Won last night. Caitlin Clark had a triple-double, scoring 40 points. Iowa women's basketball will play in the Final Four. Happy for my Hawkeyes.
Yeah. No, look, men's and women's teams, you had Miami in there with both teams.
They're both Elite Eight. Correct.
Both of those tournaments going on at the same time. Yeah, it's hard keeping up with both of them at the same time. But regardless, man, this is the level. Look what Kim Mulkey's done at LSU.
Yes,
just comes in second year. Matt, keep rolling. We're gonna work on an technical issue about. I want you to go over, if you can, the strengths, weaknesses of these Final Four teams as you see, and we're gonna try to fix this, and we'll be right back in with you. But keep going because I'm telling you right now, Florida Atlantic has won 35 games, 35-3, and that's one of the best seasons anybody's ever had. And people probably don't know, they know Golden, the 7-footer, the big guy. And I don't know where did he transfer in, by the way, Matt?
I'm not sure, but he sure stepped it up this weekend. He played really well. If you look at Florida Atlantic,
probably the best game of his career. Okay, keep going. Yeah.
They are honestly pretty unique. They play 4 guards and a big. And you would think, well, do you have some rebounding issues? No, they do not. They're one of the best offensive rebounding teams left in this tournament. Okay. Their coach, Dustin May, ironically, is from the Bobby Knight tree. He was a former manager at Indiana when Coach Knight was there and Coach Davis was there after the whole, fallout with Coach Knight from Indiana. Then you go to San Diego State. You look at Coach Dutcher. Waited 27 years as an assistant coach to become a head coach. And he's only been a head coach for several years, takes the Aztecs back to the Final Four. He worked for a long time. A lot of people don't know this about him. He helped out and recruited some of the guys at the Fab Five for Michigan when he was an assistant back in the day at University of Michigan. So he gets the whole – I mean, when you're in this industry, Brian Dutcher, I believe, 63 years old. When you're in this industry for as long as Brian Dutcher is, and you're at the bucket list now, checking off the box of coaching for a Final Four, San Diego State has a mindset, Rob. They're going to win this final 4-team pod. They to win against Alabama, to win down the stretch against Creighton like they did. I'm not going to predict anything anymore, but I think San Diego State, Florida Atlantic is going to be a heck of a game. San Diego State, I believe I saw the statistic. They're only allowing like low 60s, maybe 62, 63 points a game. When you do that, when you guard, man, you got a chance.
Hold that thought, Matt. We're going to take a quick break. Let's take a quick break. We're going to be right back with more because I want to get more into San Diego State. Incredible team right after this.
Hey, y'all. It's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn. Just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Maynard, a fourth-generation residential broker with Hobbs & Realtors. Inventory is still a record low in Memphis, and the demand for more supply is continuing to spread across the Mid-South. Rates are starting to stabilize, which means the number of buyers is picking up daily. If you are interested in taking advantage of today's market, please give me, Eleanor Maynard, your Sidelines Live residential specialist, a call today, and let's discuss your needs. 901-761-1622 or directly on my mobile, 901-219-1905. That's 219-1905.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right. Interesting. You're looking at that Florida Atlantic San Diego State matchup. Matt, much better now. San Diego State is, and you mentioned a couple of years ago when the virus wiped out the NCAA tournament, I think they were a 31 or 32 team win team. Florida Atlantic's Dusty May, what he's done. They only beat one team. And I remember when I was looking at the rankings or the brackets of 68, I'm studying Florida Atlantic. This goes to show you it doesn't really matter who you played. They'd only played one team all year long that made the NCAA tournament. And there were teams like Texas, Baylor, and Kansas who had all played 13 or more teams that qualified. Because how many of them are in the Final Four? None of them are. What's that telling you? Read into that, Coach.
Well, if you look at FAU's non-conference schedule, believe it or not, and they lost Ole Miss 80-67 early in the non-conference season. They did play Florida and beat Florida by 2 points, but you're right. You know, it's not like they played a tremendous non-conference schedule compared to some other teams in the country. But I will say this, because I've coached teams like this. The more you win and you gain confidence and you go in your league and you win games in your league and you win on the road and you win in various fashions, you win with defense, you win by outscoring people in a certain game where the tempo was increased. You're not fazed by anything. And if you look at it, we didn't know this at the time, but Memphis had them on the ropes. And as the immortal, God rest his soul, Dennis Green says, and they let him off the hook, right? And after that, you know, they catch a break. They play, instead of playing they play Fairleigh Dickinson, right? Who beat Purdue. So they get a break there. They don't have to go against Zach Edey. And then, you know, Tennessee in the first half is up 25-16. And really, Tennessee missed a few shots, some bunnies. Could have been up halftime 10, 11, 12 points. It's a 5-point game. In the second half, that's 2 possessions. Florida Atlantic shoots the 3 well. They go on like a quick run to take the lead. They never look back. And then really against Kansas State, that was just like a dogfight, man. They were boxing, punching. They go to the glass, Rob. They get offensive rebounds in a 4-guard lineup. I've seen this before. They just will themselves to out-hustle you to the ball. So when you spread the floor and you have a traditional 4-out-1-in offense, right? Bear with me here. You got to post inside. I take a perimeter shot. When that weak side guard sprints, if there's no box out, they're just beating people the ball sometimes. And that's just called effort level. And if you watch them play, they just play so hard. And they're to me, they're a joy to watch. It's not like a Picasso, but man, it is something that you go to that estate sale, sitting there in the corner, and you find this piece of artwork, and man, you get it back to the house. You're like, man, I just found me. This is unbelievable what I just found. Yeah. They've put it all together. And I got to tell you, when they beat UAB by, I think it was 78-56 in the title game, I'm like, wow, this team's better than most people are going to give them credit for. And my former assistant, Jennifer Sullivan's the head women's coach there. And her and I talked, and she said, Coach, this team's really good, because she sees them every day outside of her own practice. Yeah. So now that's what's great about this one side of the bracket, Rob. Florida Atlantic and San Diego State, they believe we're not just going to have a winner to the title game. We believe we can win the whole thing. Yeah. Well, they're both – I mean, both of those teams, their effort is there. And you see it with a lot of teams with a more talented roster. You can even have fighting, you know, and because they all want the ball. These guys believe in each other. They love one another, and they're having a lot of fun. But I think the trademark with both San Diego State and Florida Atlantic is nobody is going to out-hustle them. They're going after every loose ball. They're a true team, and it's a lot of fun to watch that. You know, how many people right now, other than Golden, because he's 7 feet for Florida Atlantic, how many of these players does the average person name? They all knew the big names of guys at Alabama and Kansas and some of the other schools, Gonzaga, Drew Timme, they all know that. But people have it in their mind, these are the best teams. If they don't make it, somehow it's not as good of a tournament. I just don't buy that. Let's flip over back to UConn. I mean, we didn't think, and we said
for the second year in a row, we've heard there are 15 or 20 teams out there that could win the whole thing. It wasn't really a dominant team. And I love what you said. And I agree. UConn is playing like the dominant team. Now they're in the Final Four. They've got a matchup with Miami. And what Miami did late against Texas makes me think they can win the whole thing as much as I think UConn can, or Florida Atlantic or San Diego State. This is as wide open a field as I can remember in the Final Four.
Well, listen, there's no way I would bet against Miami or UConn. I'm just going to enjoy that game. Well, I don't bet on the games, but there's no way I really can make I can predict that UConn's going to win that game because of the way they've been playing. But two of the games that Miami has played in this tournament, they have come back from tough situations, being down late in the last 10 minutes of ball games and making big shots, and not only making big shots, getting big stops. If you watched that game yesterday, Rob, you probably noticed when they got down, one of the things that Larry did was he sped up the tempo. He picked up a little bit man full after made basket, right? And it wasn't like he turned Texas over that much, but he kind of got them out of their rhythm. And there was a point in that game, Texas has a terrific guard. I think his name's Marcus Carr. And, I was like, in the half court, when Texas is in rhythm, Miami was not getting stops. But they sped the game up. Texas missed a couple shots. Miami got in their flow, which they like to do. They go up and down at a high clip. And when that thing got manageable, you could just see the momentum shift. And all of a sudden, Larinaga had the tempo. Miami had the tempo in their favor. And quite frankly, it turned the game. Rob, I want to give you a stretch here. I'm looking this up right now. I'm going to read this to you. This is in the month of January. UConn, no, this is in conference games in Big East, which we probably thought, besides the Big 12, we didn't talk about the Big East a lot in the show, but we knew the Big East was pretty good, right? Yeah. But UConn loses on the road 12 to Providence, okay? They beat Creighton at home, but then they lose on the road to Marquette. They lose at home to St. John's, who fired their coach this year. Seton Hall beats them. They beat Butler, but then, Xavier beats them. So just a stretch there where they were just trying to hold serve in their own conference. And now they have figured some things out. And what I don't know, Rob, is we don't actually have many people on this show reporting from Storrs, Connecticut for us. What I don't know is if they had some injuries during that stretch when they lost. It looks like 5 out of 7 there, That's what I don't know because, they even won a game at Georgetown by 6 points, And Georgetown fired Patrick Ewing this year. Creighton beat them in the regular season. So the one thing that's unique, though, if you're trying to put some dots together, Creighton was in the Big East. So was UConn. Mm-hmm. They split regular season, right? Okay. Yeah. San Diego State beats Creighton in a really close game. I don't know, man. I still think anyone on that left side of the bracket that comes out of there, regardless of what happens in the Miami and UConn game, I think we're going to have a title game that's more competitive. I really do. Because UConn's been blowing everyone out, Rob. It's not even close. Yeah. I think what we all want is next Monday night, just like we had we didn't have it in college football because Georgia just decimated TCU. We'd like to see a version of Ohio State, Georgia in men's basketball next Monday night. It's hard to happen, but we'd love to see it.
Yeah. Well, or TCU in Michigan.
Right. Correct.
But I love that breakdown that you just did for us. Florida Atlantic, San Diego State, UConn, and Miami. And think about this. In Broward County, where Florida Atlantic is, and Miami, which is Dade County. I mean, when was the last time we had 2 teams in the Final Four from bordering counties? Doug Dean, can you answer that question for us down from Birmingham, from high above your perch looking over the valley, over the mountain?
No, I can't, but I want to compliment your programming. To have 2 highly intelligent deans on here is really, really a coup.
Absolutely. Hey, it's Irish Monday. I love the chemistry. Man, you should have heard the coach breaking this stuff down. And it was cool that one of his former assistants on his team is now the head women's basketball coach at Florida Atlantic, and she's been telling him, hey, they're really good. Don't sleep on these guys. So it's a double Dean. Let's go.
What a March Madness. And stick around a minute if you can, Matt. I've got some, you're going to hear everyone talk, especially those who are kind of butthurt, which happens to all but one of us, all but four, you could say, with the Final Four every year. You're really licking your wounds and disappointed. That would be true of every single SEC team. How about this? Every single Big Ten team that made the tourney. And all things. We were very critical of the ACC, but I think bet against Miami at your own peril the way they look. And UConn will have, really all four of them will have something to say about that. Who am I at this point to doubt San Diego State or FAU, right?
Yeah.
I think you're going to hear people talking about, well, there must be something wrong with the tournament. We've got to reduce it. If you're going to change it, and I would highly recommend not even thinking about that. When you've got a Rembrandt, like I said on your show Saturday, Rob, don't have someone come in with watercolors and think they can improve it, right? And so, but I would, knowing what we're going to get with the NIL, and I agree with Barkley that within 3 to 5 years, there will be 25, 30 basketball teams that are really dominating because of NIL. And you'll have that team, that veteran team that comes along like San Diego State, maybe FAU. Miami's very veteran. I think that kid Wong has been playing for like 10 years there.
Yes, he has.
Anyway, the point is, you could reduce, what if you reduced it to 48, but then with the Final Four, you make it best of 3 series? That would be intriguing to me, but I wouldn't even attempt that. I think what you get this year is not a single 1 seed, not a 2 seed, not even a 3 seed in the friggin' Final Four.
Yeah. Well, and for both of y'all, the interest, Jim Nance, y'all heard his closing comments in that Miami-Texas game. He goes, people who are asking where the heavyweights are. Well, you've got UConn, but he goes, embrace this. And I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Doug. I think you're going to see more of this. You're going to see some programs that are going to every year kind of go head to head with the Blue Bloods because, we always, when the portal came around and when NIL started, we kind of felt a little sorry for some of the mid-majors, right? Because they were getting some of their players that would build up a resume at their institution would move on. But I think what's developed now is you got programs that are fighting back and using the portal themselves and maybe going after some blue blood players that aren't playing a ton and saying, hey, come with our mix and we'll develop you and we'll get you that tape you need to get in the league maybe. So it's really interesting. And we're also kind of finally phasing out guys the extra year of COVID eligibility kids too. So we're also going to lose some of those older teams that we've had the last 2 years. We see that at our place too. We have more 5th year graduate players at Rhodes College than we've ever experienced in my 30 plus years.
You know what, Matt and Rob, the criticism, and Coach Cal is the poster child of this, and it's kind of not. What do you do? Expect recruit fewer 5-stars, Calipari? That you're not going to do that. Why would you turn down a McDonald's All-American? But the criticism was, if you get all these load up on one and dones, you're going to lose early in the tournament because you don't have a team that's played together 2 or 3 years. And this tournament, I can't prove this because it's in the space between the ears, in not only the players' heads but coaches. But I think that because of either inexperience on the roster and I'll even say inexperience with a few teams that are blue bloods, inexperience with the head coach. I think that being a 1 or 2 seed, especially a 1 seed, was kind of a curse this year because it adds this pressure as the game tightens up and the team you're playing at, let's say it's a 5 or 6 seed or even 8 or 9 seed that's confident, they get to play loose and come after you, and all of a sudden you're tighten up. And you see that affecting, I don't want to pick on Alabama, they weren't alone, but 3 of 27 outside the arc. That's something, some of that's got to be just the pressure and tension of the moment.
Yeah. Look, here's an interesting bit of trivia that our good friend Shoney from Valdosta, Georgia, on the Florida-Georgia line put out. First time ever, Final Four, no McDonald's All-Americans.
Wow.
Thank you. I mean, that and Doug, I love the double dose of the deans, because the critical analysis from both of y'all is spot on. And I'm getting a lot of stuff from listeners down in South Florida, but who would have ever thought the Final Four, half the teams would be from South Florida, the Beach Boys, they call them. It's a great story. Sports Illustrated, their front cover, I can't wait to see what it's like. Don't y'all remember when we used to just count the minutes till the postman, Cliff Clavin, brought Sports Illustrated to the front door?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the some of what you saw in the waning moments of a few games. I realize that defenses win games too, and that's been maybe arguably the story of this tournament. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, but I don't think anybody that's in this Final Four has gotten there primarily by just getting hot outside the arc and shooting threes. You hear that?
Doug, hold those thoughts, because this is great stuff. That I love where you're going. I don't know exactly where you're going, but I love the start of it. Let's take a break. We're going to be right back. Double dose of Deans on Monday Sidelines. All right, Doug, great points. Andy Kelly, one of our listeners in Huntsville, made a comment. He said, who would have ever thought, like you say, Florida Atlantic, Miami, and then San Diego State and UConn? You know what all 4 of these schools have in common? It's a Final Four where all 4 schools touch, water. They have a beach. This is an interesting thing for an idiot savant like me. I just came up with that, but Andy Kelly pointed that out. But Doug, keep going with what you were saying. Why these teams are there? I love that.
Yeah, I wanted to go inside the waning moments of a few games. Certainly, K-State, and there I think the Texas is another example. But for the life of me, no situational awareness, knowing the moment, and we've got a coach on the program, Matt, that can opine on this when I give my comment. But when you've got a chance at a 3-point shot to either send it to overtime or win if it goes down, and you drive it into the trees, and you go too far in and you get beat up and you turn the ball over, you never even get a shot of it. It seems like you would, at all costs, if you have to shoot from a little farther out, you would do that rather than risk the clock running out because you get the ball knocked out of your hands. Your comments on that late game stuff, Matt?
Yeah, Doug, it was interesting. So I'm sitting there and we're having this conversation. People are asking me about if Florida Atlantic made those free throws, are they going to foul? There was 2 scenarios. If you remember correctly, the first time FAU was on the line, I think there was 17 seconds to go, right? So they make the 2 free throws. Noel drives. They hit someone for a reverse layup. They made it a 1-point game again with like 8 seconds to go. They foul with 6.9. Now at 6.9, I was really thinking that Florida Atlantic, once the ball reached the midpoint, the circle there, half court, I thought they would foul. My rule was 7 seconds and under when I coached. If we were up 3, I would yell out Vegas. Let's say we're up 2, we're at the foul line for one more shot. I would yell out Vegas, and that was our call. And we practiced this, how we foul, right? And we would try to pick the ball up and then kind of ride on their hips and kind of push on them right past half court, foul with 3 or 4 seconds. That didn't happen. Conversely, Kansas State didn't even get a shot up. It was like they reversed the ball to one side of the floor. If you remember, it looked like Florida Atlantic kind of double teamed that one guy, and they were kind of like reaching in like they're going to foul. And it looks like Florida Atlantic was coached up in practice like, we're going to give the appearance we're going to foul, but we're not going to foul. So Kansas State was kind of like backing off. I thought it was really good defense on FAU's part, and I thought it was lack of execution on Kansas State's part. And that's the only time in the tournament I watched Kansas State play the last 3 games that I felt like they didn't even execute to get a shot up. It was really shocking, that sequence to me, Doug.
And equally shocking, the kid had the tournament. You could make a case for Noel as MVP, even though they're knocked out. Yeah. But he gives the ball up in that moment.
I know. I thought he was going to take it all the way and pull up and shoot. I really did.
Yeah, and then, but back to your comment, brilliant and good situational awareness by a well-coached FAU team. But they knew if they could play defense really tough and tight, because the worst that can happen to them is you send somebody to the foul line for 2, which they do.
And you know, one other thing, Doug, I'll go back to when I was a manager. This is 30 years ago when I was a manager of a basketball team at Drake. One of the things that happened to us, believe it or not, we were up 3. We told one of our guys to fouled on the shot. We lost on a 4-point play in overtime. So that's why you have to practice those things, okay? You have to practice where you foul and how you foul, right? Yep. And it almost looked like when Noel gave the ball up, Florida Atlantic at that point, it looked like they were converging in to foul the other Kansas State player. And it's like they went in like with a fencing sword and pulled it back, and their hands went straight up. So they wanted to make sure that did not give the appearance of fouling on a shot. So I just think Coach May did a tremendous job with this team, because no situation fazed them this whole tournament. People don't remember, they were down, I think it was 51-44 to Memphis with under 10 minutes to go in that game. They had a nice comeback, won that game in improbable fashion at the buzzer, basically 2 seconds to go against Memphis. Down big to Tennessee in the first half, came back, nothing fazed them. Right now, if you told me that we had a Florida Atlantic Miami final, it would not shock me.
Yeah. And
UConn is clearly the favorite right now. Of these 4 teams, Vegas will give the odds towards UConn.
Yeah, right? I think so. And I'm not betting it. It's a great story with Dan. He still goes by Danny Hurley, and he hated basketball at some point, struggled with alcohol. It was tough being son of that legendary coach, the brother of Bobby Hurley. But here he is in a redemption story now. So I kind of lean toward UConn cutting the nets down now. But the other thing, Robin and Matt, I would hope the committee could find a way to look at is they didn't do anything wrong, the selection committee, that is. That I can't make any big complaints, but if there's a tweak that somehow could allow late season performance points to teams like Vanderbilt and even Birmingham's own UAB, who has Kelly Walker, one of the top 5 scorer in the nation, but in the middle of the season he missed 6 or 7 games, which hurt UAB's resume. And teams like that, if FAU has shown us anything, when you're saying, well, my team doesn't deserve to get in, we only won 20 games. No, get in if you can. Anything can happen once this tournament starts.
Yeah. Let me say something. This is interesting. Another bit of trivia from a listener, Jethro Toll in Fort Lauderdale. I love this. Throw out a shout out to Nova Southeastern University from, of course, South Florida. They're 36-0 Division II national champions. Is this the year of South Florida? Jethro Toll said people in South Florida are going nuts, as if they aren't already nuts out there on the beach. I mean, but he describes it as like spring break on steroids. You got 2 teams in the Final Four. Who would have ever, Doug, Matt, who would have taken those odds in the preseason? 2 teams from South Florida be in the Final Four. And I love what you said, Doug, about Danny Hurley. That guy, he looks like, Howard Sprague, the county clerk, CPA. He's as mild-mannered, but you can tell he's got an intensity about him. And I always love to see people that overcome, issues that they have, because decline is a choice. Success is also a choice.
Absolutely. Matt?
I was going to say, Doug, one of the things about Danny Hurley, believe it or not, his sideline demeanor has greatly improved. First few years he was a head coach, I mean, he would probably lead the league or his area in technical fouls. He was just a disaster sometimes on the sidelines. I remember when they would play Memphis. And now, I know he's still intense, but he's really done a good job of tightening that up, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I love what, and this is good fodder in this, Matt or Rob, this Lenten season. Some of our faith traditions are in that never quit, give up. There's a God of redemption. But
yeah.
he said when he was drinking and partying too much, he was looking for some kind of relief. He was taking a shortcut to try to find peace within himself. And he said the story tells, this is in The Athletic, highly recommend it. You can get a trial subscription and without sticking with it. But anyway, he the fact that he sat down and told the media, be honest with y'all, I'm out. I hate basketball. And he told them about his demons. He stepped away from it. He was really treated unkindly by the Seton Hall fan base, which Matt I'm sure remembers. And it's just great to see somebody that could have been a tragic ending in a story like that, in which we nearly lost Bobby Hurley. You remember that horrific car accident. So I will not be pulling against UConn. Oh, they're the blue blood that remains.
And, it was pretty neat scene watching that the game behind the bench. You had Bobby Hurley, his brother, with Dad Sr., and they're supporting the brother. And even though they were just kicking the tail out of their opponent, you could see the emotion at the end that they knew what this meant. That it meant so much more, Doug, because of what you described. I mean, this is a legendary tale. And, I remember watching Bobby Hurley play at Duke, and he was obviously, everybody did not like the Evil Empire back in the 90s, some of the teams he played with. What a phenomenal college player. Now, he had a short pro career. I always thought Bobby was going to be the more successful. I thought Bobby was going to take a team to the Final Four before his brother. And kudos to that family. You can tell they're really tight. They support each other, and it's a neat story.
I want to go back to some of this again. It's unprovable. All we've got is data to look at. But there's some really smart people that can work the analytics and figure it out. I think, certainly Miami's coach, FAU, you could say, at least philosophically, what Bruce Pearl wants to do is lead with strong defense. Now, some years you've got to have the players to be really, really elite at that. And Bruce is going to hit the portal hard, already is. When you look at a team that builds their system, and Nate have to decide, will this work long term? It might work winning a lot of regular season games because you get your comfort of home court, but shooters like familiar environments. Yeah. And if you live by the three, what's different about March Madness? All of a sudden, all 6 games are going to be in unfamiliar courts, different depth perception. You heard some players talk about the basketball feeling different in the Alabama-San Diego State game. They're both playing with the same basketball, but the rims some of them feel stiff or different. I don't get that. I don't know how you can have that much variation in a rim, but the point is, if you build your success around relying on the long jumper, then March Madness will deal you fits more often than not. You agree, Matt?
I do. And Doug, one of the things you just touched on is so true. I've been fortunate enough to host a few pods in the NCAA tournament as a coach and also as an administrator. So the NCAA will ship you these brand new basketballs, okay? and they're slick. They've never been used. You try to break them in that week in practice. And I got to tell you guys, if you go to most games, you don't probably realize this, but the game ball is usually one of the most used. Warm ball shooters they don't like slick balls. How about I say that? And shooting percentages in general go down at these neutral sites because of the ball, and Doug also because some of the rims, and it could be a tight rim too. And whereas if you go to a venue, the rims are broken in. If I'm hosting the game, the rims are broken in.
And I would love to see the data. I could have researched it and pulled it, but I'm not the biggest nerd in the world. But there's some amazing analytics out there. But I'd love to see, just take like the last 10 March Madness tournaments and break it down by what percentage of the time did teams make the Final Four, let's say, or just make the Elite Eight by high 40, 45+% from the 3-point arc. I bet it's very low. I know
that's right.
Hardly ever. Yeah. But both of y'all are right about, streaky teams that like the home court. Well, that's the whole thing. That's why when you pick these teams in the brackets, you got to think about the different venues and the depth perception. Playing basketball for the Final Four in an arena that holds what Reliant Arena there in Houston be 60,000 plus. Think about the depth perception.
Yeah.
My God. Who doesn't remember Kevin Nealon in that Mr. No Depth Perception skit on Saturday Night Live? But it's that difficult. And I think both of y'all have brought something up that people probably weren't thinking about, is the balls, and everything's different, Matt. That's great stuff.
I'm sorry to walk on you. I'm probably a homer to say this is just the only thing that sticks in my memory, but I guess that 2019 Auburn Final Four team was one example. I can't think of any others. There probably are some in the last 10 years that really needed great 3-point shooting to make the deep run that they made. Because that Auburn team, no offense to the guys, but they didn't have the biggest presence in the post. They had, McLemore and Wiley a little bit, but they heavily depended on the three. But I don't think you can, with reliability, do that over the long haul.
Yeah. And Matt, we talked about good old guards, how important the guards are, that position. And Jimmy Dykes said it over and over and over as the season wore on. Who uses the guards more than Jim Larinaga at Miami? That game, Miami and UConn, both of these games are going to be classics. They're going to keep people. I think they're going to have great numbers.
I don't know what Texas, where their head was starting the second half, but they just really played into Miami's hands, I thought.
Yeah. Matt, I think what Doug just said. What happened down the stretch run?
Well, let's go to the guards for a second. And I'm going to dig deep with my brother Dean here about some psychoanalysis. But the reality is, when you watch these games as they go later and later into the tournament, this is why Tennessee met their maker, because they finally did not have – it finally hurt them not having Zakai Ziegler on the floor.
Yeah.
When you're having – Tyrone Key bring the ball up to give Vescovi a break, or Manchek, whomever. If you don't have a guard that can get to the paint and either distribute, hit the mid-range shot, or finish at the rim, defenses tighten up, and it's really hard to score, okay? I just thought, one of the things that – and Doug, going back to that last possession of Kansas State and Florida Atlantic, Norwell had done that the whole tournament. He had controlled the ball the whole tournament. And for him to give up the ball there with still three and a half seconds on the clock, 35 feet from the basket. Hey, if he goes hard towards the rim for a pull-up and they foul him, you still can run a play. You make the first free throw, you miss the second, rebound, tip, whatever.
Yeah.
But that was one of the most shocking plays in the tournament, because go back to the game before in the Michigan State game. He played that marvelously down the stretch. So that to me, it just goes back to, Rob, to your point, and Doug, you touched about this. If you've got to have a quarterback, no different than football, That point guard has got to be a factor. And if you look at the teams remaining, all of them have really good guard play. And you can make the argument right now that Miami may have more of them on the floor.
Yeah. Hold that thought. Let's take a quick break because, quarterback, point guard, it's one and the same. And, you're right. It bit Tennessee on the rear. More right after this.
Hey, y'all. It's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection. And they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Maynard, a fourth-generation residential broker with Hobbs & Realtors. Inventory is still a record low in Memphis, and the demand for more supply is continuing to spread across the Mid-South. Rates are starting to stabilize, which means the number of buyers is picking up daily. If you are interested in taking advantage of today's market, please give me, Eleanor Maynard, your Sidelines Live residential specialist, a call today, and let's discuss your needs. 901-761-1622 or directly on my mobile, 901-219-1905. That's 219-1905.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, man, we got a great roundtable Monday blitz on here. Doug Dean, Matt Dean, Franz Beard, Rob Browne here with you. And, I love, Matt, where you were going into the break, not having the point guard or having the guards. We all know Jim Larinaga last year in the tournament was starting 4 guards in his 5-man lineup. And everybody talks about having the big guys. Well, Florida Atlantic has Golden. He's a 7-footer with like a 7.5-foot wingspan. He played his best game in the tournament over the weekend. And I mean, he's a heck of a player, but who has, other than Miami, who has really embraced the guard that much? I mean, it's without good guard play at this time of year, you are dead in the water. You're trying to swim in a concrete wetsuit.
Well, one of the things, and I said this earlier, guys, and Franz, welcome. Good to see you again. One thing that's special about Florida Atlantic, and I'm just telling you this because I've had to play teams like this, they literally are rebounding at a high level with 4 guards on the floor certain times. And they just play so hard. That weak side guard is not afraid to get his nose in there and go get the basketball. And they've had great productivity inside. They've offensive rebounded really well. And if they can continue to do that, they're going to have a chance in every game they play. They're not afraid. They can play from behind. They've been behind against Memphis. They've been behind against Tennessee. It's not phased them. Yeah. And I like their chances against San Diego State. I really do.
You know what, guys? Good to see you, Franz. One of the things that if you read or watched that I can't pronounce his name, Larinaga. Yeah. Yeah, and I hang around Italians, you would think I could pronounce it. But the of necessity, because his big Omir, the Nicaraguan, who's a stud, 248-pound presence in paint, had a quick foul in the first period. So the coach took a gamble and sat him for a long stretch all the way till halftime with one foul because he knew when he gets excited, the coach said he tends to draw a foul or get a foul. The second period, he got 2 quick fouls again, sat him for long stretches. So Miami ended up kind of necessity going with a smaller lineup, and damn if it didn't pay off for them.
Yeah. Franz, you're there in Florida. Would you have taken the odds? But we've been talking about this a lot. 2 teams from Dade and Broward County in the Final Four. And it's a hell of a story if you're just a regular sports writer. Not so sure the orange and blue like it that much, but if you're wondering, can you build a championship program in Florida? Florida's won 2 national championships, went to 4 straight Final Fours, 2011 to 14. Here's another shot in the arm.
Well, we also are forgetting Nova Southeastern just won the Division II, going undefeated and averaging 103 points a game. I watched the Division II national championship game, and that was the most entertaining game I have seen all year long. Watching these guys, because it's like a revival of Kimball and Gathers when Paul Westhead had Loyola Marymount, which is if the moment you cross midcourt, you are open, fire away. And they had a little point guard named Graziani, who's 5'9" and maybe $130, who is just I have never seen a kid play as hard as he does. And amazing game. But you got, I'm not saying Florida's the basketball capital of the world, but I am going to tell you this. Everybody from, in Florida, and you got to remember something. Florida doesn't begin until West Palm Beach, the Palm Beach County line northward. You're talking about Cuba del Norte down there. But everybody in Florida is amazed that our friends in Cuba del Norte have 2 teams in there, because if you'd have asked anybody before the season started if you're going to have 2 teams in the Final Four from the state, they would have said Florida and Florida State. And of course, Leonard kind of had too many injuries this year, and Todd Golden, first year there. I got a little stat for you. Speaking of that, real quick. Florida played 2 teams in the Final Four. They played K-State, which made the Elite 8, Tennessee, Arkansas, Alabama, and Xavier from the Sweet 16. Plus, they played Kentucky, Missouri, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Auburn, West Virginia, and Kennesaw State. That's the toughest schedule in the entire country, folks, and I guarantee you. And they went 16 and 17. With a team that didn't fit all that well. This is why I'm so impressed with what Miami has done, why I'm so impressed with what UConn has done, because they rallied back from a series of mid-season injuries, and they're my team. I don't think anybody's going to beat them. I just don't. Their guards don't give the ball away, and when you can come off the bench with Klingon, who is 7'2", and can run the floor like that. I remember a comment somebody made is, we're watching an NBA player, and he is going to be an NBA player. And then they got another great story there, and that is Sonogo. Sonogo plays below the rim, and he's also playing at Ramadan, which means that he goes from sun up to sunset. Can't drink or eat anything at all, and then he's going out there and playing. I'll tell you, there's some great stories there. I think UConn is the best team left. Florida Atlantic and San Diego State's going to be a rock fight, and I just can't see anybody beating UConn though. I really can't.
Yeah. Doug, what he just said, UConn, what a story. I mean, but the 2 Florida schools, San Diego State, when you watched Alabama against San Diego State Friday, you could see Alabama's confidence just collapsing as the game went on. San Diego State they have a football player's mentality. That's my take.
Yeah, that's what Candace Parker said at halftime. I thought it was a great comment that Alabama football, these are her words, not mine, a football school. No one disputes that. This year, they sure look like a basketball school for this season, doing everything right, regular season and SEC tourney. But, their matchups, that's the problem with one game elimination format. You have a possibility of, in my opinion, San Diego State would, if both teams are healthy on a neutral court, what do I know? But my guess is Alabama would beat them 6.5, 7 times. But it was one of those three that San Diego State, the referees were allowing some really physical play. And, on some of your shows, Rob, if I ever bring up the referees, somebody throws a flag on me, screw them. I can talk about any aspect of the game of basketball or football, even if it includes officiating. But my God almighty, there were several clear-cut charges, and they went a little bit both ways. And that played into the Aztecs' hands, and it really bothered Alabama. This was a team that what Alabama is set up to do is they put all 5 guys on the perimeter, and if you defend that, they're going to have somebody slashing the lane for an easy basket. But as you saw, Quinterly was hard-headed, and Oates never talked him out of driving the rim, and about 5 or 6 times he got rejected with blocks, and I don't know how you adjust to that, but San Diego State defends you everywhere you are like swarming Yellow Jackets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Matt, coaching that kind of basketball, that kind of defense, you don't have to have superstar players. This is where you say, look, none of y'all are McDonald's All-Americans, but we're going to work harder than any of them ever will. If you do that, I think that's what happens.
It is called Mortal Kombat basketball, and when you play San Diego State, because Jim Dutcher, he'll do a 2-hour practice session and they may spend 15, 18, 20 minutes at most on offense. And the rest of the time is designed to figure out a way to frustrate you into making bad shots. And that's exactly what they did with Alabama. They made Alabama probably took as many bad shots in that game as they had in the previous 5 combined.
God. Matt, to coach like that, like what he's saying, San Diego State, what kind of player do you go after because a lot of the superstar McDonald's All-American type players, I don't think they really want to do that, do they? You got to recruit to your culture, don't you?
Well, really, when I had my better teams, and I had a stretch where we went back 25-4, 25-4. Of our 8 losses in 2 years, none were greater than 4 points. But I had a great point guard. And one of the things, Franz said in the show, I think last week, Franz, you were on UConn right before Sweet 16 started. And one of the things you said that resonates with me is their guards don't turn it over. They don't give you the ball. And if you're going to win the turnover margin and you have bigs like UConn does, and I think it may be the Hawkins kids that shoots them from the perimeter, if you can shoot the ball and you got bigs and I don't give you the ball, I'm not going to lose. And I think this is UConn's tournament to win right now. They're on all cylinders. But going back to your initial question, Rob, to build a basketball team like Brian Dutcher has done, it's not new to him because he did it with recruiting the Fab Five. He's a great recruiter and he knows what he wants. He identifies, he's not going to get 5 stars, but he identifies guys that he thinks he can develop to fit into his system. And one of those things, every great team, look at their turnover margin. I promise you, it's +3 or 4 or greater. They are getting more possessions every game. If you combine that with an outstanding job on the glass, you're in every basketball game.
And then, hey, before I cut out, guys, get out of here. I'm going to yield my time to the senators from Florida and wherever Matt's from. But,
Memphis.
It's like one of your guests Saturday morning said about how fouls were not called or how that game was called in Alabama, San Diego State. No autopsy, no foul call.
Yeah, that was one from I think Coach Leonard Skinner in Jacksonville, Florida or something. But I love that. That's New York City basketball. I love it.
Well, you remember an official we had named Carl Hess. My nickname for Carl Hess, and it went viral, was Body Bag. You know, if there's no if there's no body bag involved, there is absolutely no chance he was going to call a foul. You know, and I like Carl. And the thing I liked about Carl Hess was it was the same at both ends of the court. And see, this is the thing that I get, you know, Alabama people, and I've heard it, you know, out the wazoo for the last couple days about what happened with Alabama. And they were complaining about the officials. And here's the thing I told them. I said, they were calling it the same way at both ends. If they're calling it one way at one end and one way at the other, then it's the official's problem. If they're calling it both ways and you lose, it's your problem because you did not adjust. And Alabama did not adjust.
You guys.
Purely and simply. They did not adjust. The game was called the same way, both ends of the floor. And Alabama just flat out did not adjust to it. It was like the very first time they'd ever seen physical play.
Well, you know, if you let the officials get in your head too, they can contaminate the game. But man, Jay Wright is so good as an analyst. I think both of y'all would agree. But he sure as hell needs to be back on the bench. He needs to be coaching somewhere, and I hope he will come back. But I love his take on the New York City guards, just the toughness. I mean, how many times do you see talented teams lose games because they're not tough? You know, it's easy to run with the wind at your back. Show me the runner who trains against headwinds, who trains for every possible scenario. That's where the mental part of this. And you know, you can talk about a football field is 100 yards long and 45 yards wide and whatever, all that stuff, 52 yards wide. But what's the most important real estate on the football field, the basketball court, the baseball field? It's the 6 inches between your ear. Because if you're putting junk in your head, junk's coming out. I love my favorite quote. Pat Dye used to stand in the backfield with the offense every day at practice. He said, I wanted to watch my quarterbacks because that guy's going to touch that damn ball on every snap. And I'm not saying he's my only player, but by God, he's not allowed to have a negative thought. Don't go there. Y'all know what I'm talking about. As fans, when we're watching games, you know, these text threads, we all see them. Oh, we suck. No. Holy cow. Do you want that guy in the huddle with you? Either one of y'all? I think both of y'all would say, hell no.
Well, Pat Dye would be sitting there saying, I will watch the quarterback call the quarterback and touch the ball every damn play.
Damn right.
You know, I got 7 days of oatmeal still in my mouth when I'm talking to him.
But you know what? He would slow motion. And Matt, you know, in practice when y'all watch coaches and Doug, I mean, Doug had to go, but Franz, when you watch practice, body language, oh my God, rolling eyes, sighing, just the frustration, all that stuff says everything about how you're going to play when things go against you, Matt. Wouldn't you agree? As a coach, are you watching body language? You're watching everything, but you don't want to see a guy hanging his head, do you? Or a girl?
No, you're right. And one of the things that's interesting, when you talk about point guards, and Franz, you may agree with this or not, but when I recruited really good point guards, it's not like, you know, we can have two. So what happens is if I get a star point guard, they're going to play for me probably for 4 years. And it's really tough in that 4-year cycle to recruit their backup because usually it's just like a quarterback. They want to play.
Yeah.
So going back to my analogy about Zakai Ziegler, you know, people are asking, well, why isn't there a backup like Zakai? Because he's playing on someone else's roster. They don't exist on the same roster. And that's why this tournament is unique. When you get a special point guard with a group of older players that have a mentality that they are going to execute every possession, They're not going to turn the ball over. And if they get behind 8 or 10 points, they're mature enough to realize, hey, there's plenty of time.
Hold those thoughts, Matt. Hold those thoughts. I want to break that down right after this. Matt Dean, Franz Beard, Rob Browne. Matt, keep going. You were on fire going into the break.
No, I'm just telling you, some of my teams that did not perform at the highest level, I may have had an injury to the point guard. I may have just gotten a point guard that wasn't as good in my evaluation process was. But this time of year, you look at the New York guards. You talked about that, Rob. Look at what Tyson Walker had done for Izzo this year in the later part of the seasons. Michigan State did not have a good year. They get in the tournament. Tyson Walker helps lead them in the Sweet 16, and they play in one of the most memorable games. He comes back home. He's a Brooklyn native. And really, it was just, one possession here or there. The Kansas State-Michigan State game was an epic game that Kansas State won. And I just think guards are so important because, honestly, we think about scoring, but can you defend? There's 2 questions that I ask my staff before every season when we start is, how are we going to defend the ball screen? And are we going to foul up 3 late? Those are 2 things I want to know because everything else I kind of can figure out. And how that relates to the point guards is my better guards have had the ability to get over ball screens in defense. And if you look at some of the better teams out there, I promise you, watch UConn play. They get over ball screens.
Well, here's the thing I love about UConn too is what you're talking about, Matt. Is that UConn, Jackson had 10 assists the other night. Yes. He can flat out find open guys, but he's not afraid to take shots. Newton, same way. Hawkins, and all 3 of these guys go to the boards. They will drive the basketball. And here's the other thing I like about him is Jackson will give the ball up. And somebody else will basically, they'll run the offense through somebody else. They ran it through Sanogo when they tried to take Jackson out of the ball game the other day. They just ran the offense through Sanogo. It reminded me of what UCLA tried to do in 2006 to Florida. And they thought they could take Torian Green out of the game. So Florida just ran the entire offense through Joakim Noah. And I guess they forgot somebody didn't scout the fact that Joakim Noah was a point guard until he was in the 11th grade.
Well, when you look at it, both of y'all really have great analytical minds. And you look at basketball, and, I was watching when Timmy went out in the Gonzaga game over the weekend. And golly, man, he had 4 fouls with 17 minutes to go in the game, and they wanted to bring him back in, but they said, hey, if we bring him back in, what is this really going to do for us? And UConn was just dominating. But if they'd have brought him back in, he would have also helped alter a lot of shots too. So, I noticed more and more of these big guys can post up and hit the 3-pointers. That's a great skill, but they need to be able to do it consistently. What's the most undervalued position, Matt, that you're seeing of the Final Four teams that they're the weakest at? Is there any one position that all 4 have a real hole in?
You could say Miami doesn't have maybe depth at the 5 because they play through their guards so much. I think a better question is, I think because UConn has so much depth everywhere on the roster that they have such a huge advantage. There's not too much of a drop-off when they go to their bench. And I think that's the thing about San Diego State is, they play a rotation where, it's not like they're looking to score a ton of points. They're going to muck it up. They want to win 65-62. And Florida Atlantic, because they play the 4-guard lineup, They have greater depth at the guard spot, but I'm just really just enamored right now with UConn. I cannot believe the point margin they won all 4 games by. It's not been close at all. The closest they've had is when Iona had them down 2 at the half, and in the second half they blew them out by 25.
Yeah,
UConn is just on a roll, guys. They're not going to lose.
Yeah, Franz, you're watching from your bunker in your command center, and Matt, I'm seeing right now. I mean, again, 3 not considered by the national media, not heavyweights. I don't care. These are the 4 teams that have made it. UConn is a heavyweight because they've got 4 national championships, 6th most all time, tied with Kansas. But we're told every single day, Kansas. They went out in the 2nd round this year to Arkansas, and Bill Self wasn't there. I understand that. I don't know if it would have mattered if he would have been there. Probably would have. But Franz, if you're just, Joe Sixpack out there in Provo, Utah, are you excited about this Final Four? I think I'd love it. I do love it.
I really like it because, for one thing, I agree with Matt. There isn't anybody going to beat UConn. I mean, that's just not going to happen. They've got too many interchangeable parts. You take Miami, you take their big guy out, and Miami is going to have troubles. San Diego State is maybe the worst offensive team that's made the Final Four in at least 10 years. I mean, they remind me of the Howland teams, Ben Howland teams from UCLA that would get to the Final Four, and all of a sudden, they get exposed because they don't have a lick of offense going. How can you not have offense when you got Russell Westbrook? That one still has blown my mind for a long, long time. But Ben Howland figured out a way to do it. So, I mean, Ben Howland made his team's own all opponents coach team. When he got to the final four, and he did it 3 straight years with plenty of talent and couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But UConn's got more interchangeable parts. They've got the point guard that can distribute, but if you try to take him out of the game, they'll just run the offense through somebody else because they all know what they're doing. This is a well-coached team. I told Coach Hurley when he was here in Gainesville, I said, Danny, I said, I'm watching your team today, and I'm thinking I'm watching St. Anthony back when your dad coached, because that's the way they played. He says, everything we run is exactly the way my dad ran it. And he says, if it's not broken, why try fixing it? And he said, we run a couple tweaks here and there because of the way the rules have changed and everything. But he says it's still a high school offense and it still works. And the reason it works and the reason any offense will work is if you get the right people for it. Matt, you hit the nail right on the head earlier when you were talking about, you got to find that point guard, because that point guard is the one that starts it all. If everybody can feed off the point guard and you have an unselfish point guard that is really and truly all about the winning first, and everybody will buy into that, and then all of a sudden your parts are interchangeable, you've got a situation there that nobody's going to beat you. I'll go back to Nova Southeastern again. I don't know if you saw that game, but Matt Graziani, holy cow. Matt Graziani is just absolutely, he blew my mind the kid is a freshman, 5'9", maybe $130, led the country in assist to turnover ratio, 5.7 to 1. Now, I mean, I don't know. I hadn't heard about that of anybody doing that. That's just that's just mind-boggling. But he is the embodiment of what you've got to have in that he breaks the press and he gets every single person on his team involved. Monty Cal did that 1974, North Carolina State, 5'5". Monty lives in Gainesville, by the way, but 5'5" and an All-American. And if they'd had a 3-point shot, he'd have set records that would have never been broken. But you're talking about this is the type of player you've got to have running your show. And if you don't have that type of player running your show, you're going to be in big time trouble.
Well, I like what he just said, Matt. And you as a coach, everybody participates in the press. Everybody's doing it, not just a couple of guys. And if you can get a buy-in like that on your team, anything is possible. And I think it's pretty cool if you're Catholic, you know that St. Anthony is the patron saint of lost things. If you lose something, set of keys or whatever, I've heard Mallory and kids say that many times over the years. But getting a team full of guys on that roster, not just your starters, but your 6 through 13, your guys that are walk-ons, managers, and everybody to buy in, that's how you build a culture. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it has to be said. I honestly believe there's a lot of these teams out there with these superstar players that in a loss don't really give a damn. They're looking at their personal stat sheet because they've been raised that way. Their parents have enabled them to become that way, and they have been told and had their ass kissed their entire life. You the man, you the man, you the man. And they think they're the only person on that court. I would despise being in the presence of parents like that, and I would not want to coach their children on a men's or women's team of any sport. There is no place for mommy ball and daddy ball. There is only one place, and that is team ball. Coach Matt Dean, am I right? Well, or am I crazy? Or am I both?
Let me just tell you this quickly, because I think this will make sense. On my better teams, my point guard has to know when, at this point, she could be a star and when she need to be a transition defender. And I'll give you a great example. We ran a lot of high picking the ball. If she got to the paint, kicked to the shooter, I always had a rotational transition defender from behind. But if she entered the ball in the post or passed to the wing, when that shot's up, she's the first line of defense getting back. And you got to have that person with that mentality. That's not an easy thing to do. You're talking about a point guard that I had who was an All-American playing 36 minutes a game that led the conference in assists. Probably Franz only had a 3-to-1 assist turnover ratio, so that was still really good. But she knew that most of the times she had to be the first one back on defense. And that's the person I want playing for me, not someone that just score the ball only.
I had a point guard named Rooney Scoville. I almost won the national championship, the AAU ball in '81, and we would have won it.
You weren't like that as a coach, though. I didn't mean to be trashing all of them.
Well, quite frankly, we'd have won the national championship if the coach had been a little bit smarter, but he wasn't. You know, coach got dropped on his head too many times when he was an infant, and it finally showed up when we got to the Final Four of the national AAU. But, you know, I had a point guard named Rooney Scoville who understood this. You got to score, but you don't have to be the scorer. You have to pass, but you don't have to be the passer. Sometimes we tend to forget that the greatest pass is the one that sets up the assist, not the assist itself. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Noel, who had some tremendous passes, and the Miami guards were just terrific yesterday. But you know, we tend to forget that great passing does not always result. You know, this isn't like hockey where the pass before the assist gets an assist also. And maybe we need to investigate that as a possibility just like I think in football, you need to have a category for drop passes. Quarterbacks sit there and they say, well, gee, he only completed 58% of his passes. Yeah, but his receivers led the conference in drop passes.
Yeah.
And this is why I like a team like UConn, is because they all get involved in the passing. And it's not always, as I said, it's not always your point guard that makes the great pass. Sometimes your point guard gets the assist because somebody sets him up. The ball goes to him, pick and roll, boom, boom, and all of a sudden he gets the ball on the roll, and then all of a sudden somebody goes, boom, hits the baseline, and he makes that pass. So, but this is the thing, that when you get to this level, when you get to that Final Four, you better have a team that understands where everybody is. You better have a team that doesn't have a Brandon Miller. And I would tell you something. Brandon Miller showed his true colors the other night. I'm going to rip Brandon Miller here. But here's a kid that it should have taken him about 2 minutes to figure out, I ain't got it today. And he launched 19 shots. And I would say a good 10 of them were shots he should not have taken, not just because of the depth of the shot, but he's got two people all over him, and he's still trying to launch the shot.
Yeah.
And is it any wonder they got beaten by San Diego State?
Yeah.
No, it's not. To me, Alabama blew that ball game because they had, and I'm not taking anything away from Nate Oates' coaching style and everything, because Nate's got a style that works for him.
Yeah.
But he should have grabbed the kid by the lapels and said, you ain't got it today.
Yeah.
Be a Larry Bird and do what it takes to win the game. Larry Bird is probably the embodiment of the player that understood that some nights you got it, some nights you don't, but there's always something you can do to help your team win.
Yeah, Matt, I like that take.
No, he's absolutely correct. And quite frankly, Franz addressed it when he's talking about the Florida Gator Championship, where they decided to run things, maybe through Joakim. And quite frankly, what was Alabama, 3 of 27 from three? The part that I'm going to have a problem with is, I agree, Nate Oates' style a little different, but at some point you got to say, let's figure out how we get the ball inside, right? Can we get inside? Can we get to the foul line? How do we do that? And I know you'll tell me, well, that's the way they played all year. Well, live by it, die by it. You died by it the other night. Yeah.
Hey, look, we're going to take a quick break. Wes Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock's going to kick in with us right now on the final segment. We got Matt Dean, as long as he can hang on. Franz Beard, Rob Browne with you. Lots of intense basketball analogy right after this quick commercial break.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Maynard, a fourth-generation residential broker with Hobbs & Realtors. Inventory is still a record low in Memphis, and the demand for more supply is continuing to spread across the Mid-South. Rates are starting to stabilize, which means the number of buyers is picking up daily. If you are interested in taking advantage of today's market, please give me, Eleanor Maynard, your Sidelines Live residential specialist, a call today, and let's discuss your needs. 901-761-1622 or directly on my mobile, 901-219-1905. That's 219-1905.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Franz Beard, Rob Browne with Wess Moore over in Little Rock, ESPN 103.7, The Buzz. And Wes, man, my brackets probably look like most people on this show's brackets and our listeners and viewers and whatever. I've got one team left. I had Kansas, Kansas State, Alabama, and Miami. And Miami, UConn, San Diego State, Florida Atlantic. Hogs, Vols, Alabama all went out over the weekend. What's your take on this tournament as a just fan? I love it. Okay. Lost Wes there. But Franz, if you know,
I didn't have any of them.
Yeah.
I had UConn making my Elite Eight, and that's it. And I just, I guess it was one of these cases where my head was saying UConn wasn't going to get beat, but my heart was saying Gonzaga.
Yeah. Wes, we're talking about the tournament, and what's your take on it? Because I think just for the regular fan out there anywhere in America, it's exciting because there's so much of the unexpected in this crowd.
I think basically the only problem we have with this tournament is the NCAA selection committee blew it with the seeding. You got UConn, who was one of the best teams in the country earlier in this season before losing, I think it was 6 out of 8. And they're proven to me they are the best team in the country. There's no way in the world they're a 4 seed. Are you kidding me? That's a misjustice right there. And then a FAU team that won 30-something games, why are they a 9? I mean, that's bad. And you can go to Miami. I watched Miami a lot this year because of Norshad Omier. He played at Arkansas State last year, and I knew he was, Arkansas tried to get him, but that guy's a double-double machine. So I watched a lot of them. They're ACC, the best in the ACC, and then lose to Duke in the tournament game. And they're a 5? So really, if the selection committee, to me, just did a terrible job of seeding these teams, and they seeded them way too high, and they've proven that they are the best in the country. But UConn, to me, man, that team is good. They're really good. After watching them blow out Arkansas was making some shots, some hard shots, hitting some threes that Arkansas doesn't normally do. And I look up, and they were still down 7. And I was like, this isn't good. Arkansas is playing well offensively, and this team is just running all over them.
Yeah. Franz, I like what Wes is saying about the seeding. Not enough. There's going to be a lot of criticism, I think, in the post-mortem of this tournament because of the poor job of seeding teams. Wes is right.
Well, one of the thoughts that Dean Smith put forward many, many years ago was, after the first weekend, we need to reseed the teams. And I don't disagree with that. I also think that, maybe we need to start this idea that I like the old way when we had a regional, when we had the teams that were in that region played, you traveled to that site, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to get sellouts and everything like that. But, they need to redo some things here. I think they did something with the women's tournament that's pretty good, is that you had 2 sites only. You had the site at Greenville. You had 2 regionals playing, but you had Greenville and you had Seattle. And basically you end up with 4 days of basketball at one site. I thought it was I think that's a fabulous idea. But going back to the premise, why not reseed these teams after that? Now you got a Sweet 16. Let's reseed them, and then maybe just have 2 sites for your Sweet 16, and kind of get to a Final Four that way. I don't know. There's something needs to be done though, because Wes is exactly correct. Florida Atlantic, they're not a number 9, and UConn. My gosh, UConn. I don't see them getting beat. I don't know about you, Wes, but I just can't see anybody beating them.
Well, to me, the championship game is Saturday when UConn and Miami play. If Miami has one of those incredible shooting nights, they've got a chance. But no, I agree with you. And I just, it's hard for me to believe that FAU could be playing for a national. I mean, as great as a Cinderella story as it is, it's still kind of crazy to think that there's the chance that San Diego State or FAU is going to be playing for a national championship a week from tonight.
I got FAU playing UConn and getting blown out in the championship game. But what do I know? I mean, I didn't have any of these teams making the Final Four, so I must not be all that smart.
Wes, just a few listeners. I had Kansas State, Kansas, Alabama, and Miami. I got Miami, but they didn't have to play for the national championship. So, can you, this is the first time, I believe, Wes and Franz, since 1970, that we have first time ever in the Final Four. And probably, I think it's the first time ever no McDonald's All-American on any of the rosters, 4 teams in the Final Four. Wes, does that tell you that coaching and the portal, that, and as Charles Barkley said, we're going to have 25 or 30 teams dominating because of NIL? Well, a lot of schools get NIL that maybe don't have it. And with the portal, you mentioned a player from Arkansas State who's now on the roster at Miami. That's how it's turned. It's harder than ever to pick brackets right now.
No, when I look at some of these guys, San Diego State, that's an old team. FAU, an experienced team. UConn's just a great team. Miami, I mean, they did a little bit of everything. And that's the recipe these days. You're going to have to hit the portal. You're going to have to develop a couple of guys and have some seniors in there. But I think what Musselman is trying to do here, and I don't expect him to go out and sign a high school class of 6 freshmen again, ever in his life. I think he's going to go and try to get a couple of the best players in high school and then add in like 4 or 5 portal guys that are older with experience. I think that's the recipe to do it. An older team that's got experience. It's a mature group. They're hungry because this is probably their last chance to do something. I think that's a good recipe. And this year it was just a great recruiting class in the state of Arkansas, and Musselman was able to get everybody. But then the next thing you look up, he's got 6 freshmen on his team, and I think I don't think he'll ever do that again. Let's just say it wasn't a great experience for him.
Yeah, you've brought this up on the show. In the past few years, he would have 1 freshman he would lean heavily on. This year, there were 3, and then when you brought back Nick Smith late, that was 4, and that is just really hard to do. The guys that are there for 1 season, it's just no matter they may be great kids, and I'm sure they are. You know them, but it's hard to build team chemistry to take you deep into the first week of April with that much youth and inexperience. I mean, you look at the 18-year-old versus the 23-year-old or 24-year-old because of the virus. Hell, we had 11 players in this tournament, guys, 25 years or older. And again, not a single McDonald's All-American on any of these 4 rosters in the Final Four. There's a lot of great underlying storylines to be taken And if you're a sports writer, you've just got an absolute buffet of great stories to write about. But I think you're right, though, Wes. Eric Musselman, he's as excitable and fired up a guy as there is, but I doubt he'll do 6 freshmen again. I don't know of anyone who would. Look at Michigan with the Fab Five. They had those guys together for 3 years, and they did not win a national championship in those 3 years.
I asked, by the way.
Well, that was in the day when they would stick around for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. By the way, I asked Todd Golden on Thursday. I said, if you get to a point where there is a win worth celebrating in the NCAA tournament, are you going to go bare chest? Are you going to take your shirt over the top of your head and swing it around there? And he just looked at me. He says, absolutely no way. I mean, that, to me, that's one of the 3 big moments of this entire tournament, because I thought that embodies everything the tournament's all about. Is coaches, we see too many of these coaches who sit there with this face like they hadn't had a dump in about 17 weeks, and they get this dour look on their face. And all of a sudden you look at Musselman, and this is a guy that's not afraid to show his emotion, not afraid to be excited with his fans. Call them the Hogs, Mike. This was everything the tournament's all about. Florida Atlantic is everything the tournament's all about. Listening to Dusty May talking about, they said, what did you think about having this guy point guard that you've got, Michael Forrest, go to the line late in the game? He says, I never worry about him. This kid has a degree in engineering and he's working on his master's in engineering. You listen to stuff like Keontae Johnson. I mean, he didn't win, but makes the Elite 8 game. These are the things that make this tournament good. And this was a year when we had all of the elements that make the tournament good on display. And I'm happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Wes, this is, I think the interest, they should have great ratings. Now, we don't have but one, quote, heavyweight in the Final Four, but I love what Eric Musselman does. He's great for basketball.
Well, you think about it this way. If he doesn't celebrate that Kansas game like that, personally, that's it. They lost the next game. So that was their high moment. And guys, there's so much behind it, beating the number 1, Kansas, the defending champs, with everything this team's gone through, the ups, the downs, the injuries, the Nick Smith drama, for them to beat the number 1 team and make it to the Sweet 16, that was worth celebrating. And just imagine if he had a coach or someone, the philosophy that, all right, we did what we're supposed to do, we're moving on, let's go prepare for the next game. Yeah. You would have been cheated out of your last win, celebrating your last win, because that was it. They lose their next game, and there would have been no celebrating.
Wes, they did it last year. Remember, they beat the number 1 overall seed Gonzaga. I mean, that was an incredible win to get to the Elite 8, that Thursday night game, and everybody saw that. That was big. That was really big, and they beat them. They made a statement. Arkansas is going to be right back in the hunt. I mean, at 8 and 10, the people that were doing all the figuring and all were like, they're a 8 or a 9 seed, and they were. But maybe that's a great take that Franz brought up about what Dean Smith said, reseeding. That would be crazy to see them do that. But got a few minutes left. Most often, we're going to see the face of Christ in the least among us, folks. Go out and help people with the expectation to get nothing in return, and find out how to help the folks down in the Mississippi Delta and all over Mississippi and Alabama from those tornadoes over the weekend. Anybody that has information specifically they want to let us know about, we will get the word out for you. Wes, real quick, baseball, the baseball Hogs, the SEC, it's a vicious league. Let's talk about Hog baseball right now.
Well, they just played LSU last weekend, and I'll tell you what, it's very similar to Arkansas basketball. I think I just saw the best team in the country, UConn, beat Arkansas. And in baseball, I just think the best team in the country, LSU, took 2 of 3 from Arkansas. Arkansas's got a very good team. LSU's got a great team. They are stacked with hitting. Their Friday night pitcher is legit the best pitcher in college baseball. And it was a fun series to watch until, LSU started hitting those 3-run home runs, grand slams. And next thing you know, a close game was blown out. And, they're a great team. Tip your cap to them. Arkansas now knows what they need to do to improve to become a great team like LSU. And the good thing for Dave Van Horn and his staff is it's only March, early April this next weekend. You got time to improve and try to catch those guys from Baton Rouge.
Yeah, what are y'all going to be talking about today on The Buzz in Little Rock? You got a great show.
Yeah, thanks, man. Bubba Carpenter, he is the color commentator for Razorback Baseball. He will be joining us to talk some Razorback Baseball as we kind of shift gears. We move from Razorback basketball to Razorback baseball. And, of course, spring football with the Razorbacks gets started again after taking last week off with spring break. So it'll be a fun show. Join us on 1037thebuzz.com or download the Buzz app, 1037 The Buzz.
And your Twitter handle?
Is Wess with 2 S's _more with 2 O's.
All right. And Fox Sports Channel 16 in Little Rock as well. Wes, thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
Guys. Yeah.
All right.
Have a great week.
You too. Appreciate it. I love getting that take, man. Wes out on the western flank. And, man, Musselman, I also agree with him. You celebrate like you did because you know what? That was your last game. I love that. Franz, GatorbaitMedia.com. You put it out just every day, day after day. You love what you do, but God, you do your homework, the analysis. Matt Dean, Doug Dean, Franz Beard, Wes Moore. Love this Monday lineup. A lot of intellect and insight and synergy. What are you talking about on GatorBait and on the Buddy Martin Show tonight, which is Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, Twitter, and other platforms?
Well, we'll be talking about 2 things. One of them is Florida baseball, which is ranked number 2 in the country and just absolutely obliterated Ole Miss with 10 home runs in 3 ball games. Jack Caglione is leading the country in home runs with 17 homers in 26 games. Oh, and by the way, he is the Sunday pitcher too. But you look at Florida baseball; they're good. The other thing we're going to be talking about is Anthony Richardson, and I wrote about this today. Anthony Richardson, back in December, everybody was saying, what a dumb move he has made. I mean, can't throw accurately, can't process information, needs another year, on and on and on and on and on. He took all the darts, went to the combine, showed them. Everybody knew he was athletic when he went to the combine, but what he showed them at the combine was he could process the information. And on top of that, he showed them the most important thing of all. The kid is confident. He bet on himself in December. And look at this. He may end up being the number 1 guy in the draft if he blows them away at his pro day.
Yeah.
But at the worst, he's going to be the number 5.
Yeah.
That's pretty
no
good
doubt.
bet.
Look, this is going to be a fun journey to follow Anthony Richardson. Look, man, great stuff as always. Until then, make the best day possible. Go out and do great things. We'll see you tomorrow. We are out of here. Thank you, friends.